Hi, it's great to have you back. By now, we've discovered that spreadsheets and SQL have a lot of tools in common. Earlier in this program, we learned about count in spreadsheets. Now it's time to look at similar tools in SQL, count and count distinct. In this video, we'll talk about when you'd use these queries and check out an example. Let's get started. Count can be used to count the total number of numerical values within a specific range in spreadsheets. Count in SQL does the same thing. Count is a query that returns the number of rows in a specified range. But count distinct is a little different. Count distinct is a query that only returns the distinct values in that range. Basically, this means count distinct doesn't count repeating values. As a data analyst, you'll use count and count distinct anytime you want to answer questions about how many. Like how many customers did this, or how many transactions were there this month, or how many dates are in this data set. And you'll use them throughout the data analysis process at different stages. For example, you might need them while you're cleaning data to check how many rows are left in your data set. Or you might use count and count distinct during the actual analysis to answer a how many question. You'll run into these kinds of questions a lot, so count and count distinct are really useful to know. But let's check out an example to see count and count distinct in action. For this example, we're working with a company that manufactures socks. We have two tables, warehouse and orders. Let's take a quick look at these tables before we start querying. First, we'll check out the warehouse table. You can see the columns here: warehouse ID, warehouse alias, the maximum capacity, the total number of employees, and the state the warehouse is located in. We'll pull up the top 100 rows of the orders table next. We can use limit here to limit the number of rows returned. This is useful if you're working with large data sets, especially if you just want to explore a small sample of that data set. From this query, we're actually going to start with a from statement so that we can alias our tables. Aliasing is when you temporarily name a table or column in your query to make it easier to read and write. Because these names are temporary, they only last for the given query. We can use our from statement to write in what our table's aliases are going to be to save us some time in other parts of the query. So we'll start with from and use aliasing to name the warehouse orders table just orders. Let's say we need both the warehouse details and the order details because we want to report on the distribution of orders by state. So we're going to join these two tables together since we want data from both of them, and alias our warehouse table in the process. In this case, we're using join as shorthand for inner join because we want corresponding data from both tables. And now that we have the aliases in place, let's build out the select statement that comes before from. Let's run that. And there, now we have data from both tables joined together, and we know how to create these handy aliases. Now we want to count how many states are in our order data. To do that, we'll use count and count distinct now. We can try a simple count query first. We'll join the orders and warehouse tables in our from statement. And in this case, we'll start with select and count the number of states. Let's run this query and see what we get. Wait, that's not quite right. This query returned over 9,000 states because we counted every single row that included a state. But we actually want to count the distinct states. Let's try this again with count distinct. This query is going to look similar to the last one, but we'll use distinct to cut out the repeated instances we got the last time. We'll use the query we just built, but replace count with count distinct in our select statement. Let's try this query. That's more like it. According to these results, we have 3 distinct states in our orders data. Let's check out what happens when we group by the state column in the warehouse table, which we'll call warehouse.state. We'll use join and group by in our from statement. So let's start there again. And then group by warehouse state. Now, let's build out our select statement on top of that. We're still going to use count distinct. And let's run it. Now we have 3 rows, one of each state represented in the orders data, and our count distinct on the number of orders sums up the count we ran earlier, 9,999. You'll find yourself using count and count distinct during every stage of the data analysis process, so understanding what these queries are and how they are different is key. Great job, and I'll see you again soon.